Good morning, everyone. Welcome to LifePoint Community Church this morning. I trust everyone is doing well. Well, I celebrated a huge birthday this week, and as usual on my birthday, I take time to reflect on the past years and think about how I want my next few years to look like. I have now spent half my life in Australia and half in Canada. So up until now, most of my life was spent as an Australian. And now I am faced with a pivotal time where the scale is starting to tip the other way. And this made me wonder, in what areas do I need to tip the scale to be or to continue to be the person God created me to be? I think we can become so complacent and so comfortable in what we're doing that sometimes we stop striving for excellence and we stop working to further the kingdom of God. We are here for a reason, and we need to pay attention to the seasons in our lives. There is a time for everything we read. And my prayer today is that as we continue to grow as a church and as individuals, that you will experience the joys in whatever season you may be in. Enjoy the service this morning. God bless you.
Sorrow's Lamb of God, by his own betrayed, the sin of man and wrath of God has been on Jesus laid. Silent as he stood accused, beaten, mocked, and scorned, bowing to his Father's will, he took a crown of thorns. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. Son of heaven, God's own Son, to purchase and redeem and reconcile the very ones who nailed him to that tree. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. Now my debt is paid, it is paid in full by the precious blood that my Jesus spilled. Now the curse of sin has no hold on me. Whom the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. Now my debt is paid, it is paid in full by the precious blood that my Jesus spilled. Now the curse of sin has no hold on me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. See, the stone is rolled away. Behold the empty tomb. Hallelujah, God be praised. He's risen from the grave. Oh, Jesus.
Well, good morning, friends. We're working our way through the Gospel according to St. Luke. And in this morning's teaching, we're going to be thinking about those occasions when the events of life just break you. And having been broken, you find yourself in a spot where you've got to pick up the pieces and you're not sure if you still can. And of course, the terrifying thing about being in that place in life is you're just not sure what life is going to look like for you on the other side. Will you make it through? Will you survive? Will you be able to make something of what's left? When life breaks you, you find yourself scrambling around trying to salvage something, trying to put it all back together. And when you're doing that, it crosses your mind that, maybe this is it for you. Maybe this time you won't be able to start again. Maybe this time you're not going to get up. Maybe this time all the king's horses and all the king's men won't be able to put you back together again. So, for our business this morning, we're going to look at a well-known story in the life of Jesus, in which both Jesus and a woman do something that neither of them should do. That sounds a bit salacious, not intentionally. It's just a heads up that this story is going to remind you that what other people think of you isn't as important as what you need to do to survive. All right, other people's opinion of you isn't as important as what you need to do to pick yourself up and move forward and get going. All right, so the story itself comes from the Gospel according to St. Luke, and we're in verse 40, where we read that Jesus returned. So he's just crossed back over the Sea of Galilee, and a crowd welcomed him, for they were expecting him. So what's the biographer telling us here? Well, he's telling us that before Jesus sets foot on the beach, a large crowd of people are there waiting for him. And of course, they're all there for a reason. Think about it. In all likelihood, these events are happening in or around Capernaum. And at this early stage in his career, Jesus has developed a reputation for being something of a miracle worker. If Luke is to be believed, and in all historical probability he should be, then everyone in Capernaum would have known at least someone whose life had been changed in some dramatic way as a result of Jesus' miracles. So, if you live in the ancient world and a miracle worker shows up in town, what sort of people do you think are going to rush down to the beach to wait for him when he gets off his boat? Exactly. People who need a miracle. So no one in this crowd is doing well at the moment. Everyone's a little bit broken. Everyone's a little bit damaged. Everyone could really use a little bit of help. They're all just picking up the pieces, trying to make the best of things. And that explains why, in verse 41, a man named Jairus, who was a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house, because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. Now, so to understand the nuances of this story, you have to understand that this man would have been one of the most important people in his local community. Luke tells us that he's a leader in the synagogue, and to be the Rosh HaKnesset, they called him, to be that man, he would have had to have been a person of enormous, he would have been well respected in the community. He was always in good standing. He would have walked and talked and carried himself with an air of importance. And as many of you have discovered, tragedy is no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter what how well you've lived, or how successful you've been, or how faithful you've been. in your, in your Christianity or your morals or your ethics or anything like that. Tragedy doesn't care. Tragedy doesn't, from a certain point of view, the universe is cold and uncaring, and it just doesn't care who you are. And so here you have this man, this leader of the synagogue, who's, we've no reason to expect that his whole life had been anything other than decent and good and faithful. And yet, here his 12-year-old girl, or his little girl, I should say, is dying, and that's all that matters to him. And I know that many of you know what that's like. You know what it's like to have a problem so big that it just takes over your life. Some problems we can cope with and forget about every now and again, but some problems we can't. Some problems are just, they're with us every moment of the day, and they just completely consume our lives. And this man has a problem of that magnitude for sure. So yeah, Jesus unsurprisingly goes off with the worried father, I imagine to his considerable relief. However, as the story develops, even though he doesn't have a moment to spare, Jesus is forced to spare a moment. Look what the story says. We're told that a woman was there who'd been subject to bleeding for 12 years. So this woman is just one of many women on the beach that day with a problem. And I kind of like that, because just because other people have problems doesn't mean that your problem isn't a problem. And it doesn't mean that it's not absolutely pressing, and nor it should be, to you. And I mention that because when we talk about being resilient in life, we're not talking about ignoring problems. On the contrary, I think resilient people are very proactive. It doesn't matter how big the problem is or how crippling the trauma is. They know that their situation can improve if they work at it. And her being there on the beach that day is her making an effort. So I like this woman. I like her a lot. She knows that other people in the crowd have problems too. She knows, for example, that there's a very important man in the crowd who's got a far bigger problem than she does. I mean, her problem isn't even close to what the synagogue ruler is dealing with. His daughter is dying, for goodness sake. All this girl has to worry about is a problem with bleeding. And that's true. But it doesn't change the fact that she still has a problem. And she wants that problem to be resolved. And you'll notice that her problem is somewhat obliquely referred to by Luke as, what does he say? She's been subject to bleeding for 12 years. That's prudish, ancient talk for some kind of menstrual difficulty or abnormality. And as is often the case, a difficulty in one area of your life spills over and causes difficulties in other areas of your life. You've probably noticed this yourself. You have a problem over here with something, but it doesn't just affect this bit of your life. It affects your relationships. It affects your career. It affects your business. It affects your mood. And all sorts of things are affected by all sorts of other things. Life is connected. A leads to B, B leads to C. So this woman has a physical problem. She's got some kind of menstrual abnormality, but it doesn't end there. My goodness, this woman has all sorts of other problems because of it. So according to the Torah, this woman's Bible, the problem she has is it just makes her unclean. It means she's got to separate herself from society. For example, have a look at this. There's a line in the Torah that says, when a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time other than her monthly period, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be, here's the key phrase, unclean. Any bed that she lies on will be unclean. Anything that she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches them will be unclean. Do you get the picture? Do you get what this woman is dealing with? She has a very awkward physical problem, but the effects of that mean that she's socially ostracized from her community. She may not go out in public. She may not attend the synagogue. She's an outcast. She's on her own. She spent a lifetime of loneliness because of this one problem spilling over into other areas of her life. And so, according to Luke, she's had this issue for 12 long years, which I think in her case makes her resilience all the more remarkable. I mean, it's one thing to feel that you can bounce back from a problem if you've got friends you can talk to. But this woman has none of that. She doesn't have a social network. She doesn't have, mates she can talk to about how she's feeling. She's on her own. And yet, even though she's on her own, she finds from deep within herself the capacity to be resilient. And I admire her for that. Then we're additionally told that that no one could heal her. So let's try and put ourselves in her shoes. If you've got a problem like this woman does, and it affects your life in the way that this woman's problem affects her life, you will try anything and you will try everything to get better, and rightly so. So it's fair to assume then that this woman has spent 12 years of her life. She's blown tens of thousands of dollars seeing every doctor under the sun. You name the supplement, she's taken it. You name the naturopathic, juju juice, she's taken it. You name the fancy chemicals, she's tried them all. She's she's gone to the healing lodge in Nevada. She has done everything. She spent every penny she has trying to fix this problem. And I get it. She must have been a sucker for every passing snake oil salesman. Being sick in the ancient world was an expensive business, still is. So she's desperate. And when you're desperate, you'll try anything, and that's good. Because trying things gives you hope, and hope is necessary, however crazy it is, because hope points you towards the future and gets your head out of the present. So although it's a shame that she's seen every crank under the sun for the past 12 years, and although it's a shame she's spent all her money trying to get better and she's still sick, she's still hopeful. She still finds herself that morning getting out of bed with a little bit of optimism and pushing her way down to the beach and forcing her way down to the front of the crowd in order to find a solution for herself. And I like that. She's not giving up. She's going to keep going until she gets what she wants in life. Good for her. And now she's going to try Jesus. Pardon me. So in verse 44, she came up behind Jesus and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. So, you understand that by understanding that this woman has spent 12 years of her life being socially not just alone but isolated, and her isolation was enforced. It wasn't she was unclean in her deeply religious society. She was a virtual leper. So she has spent 12 years talking to hardly anyone. She's not used to crowds. She's not used to social interaction. And so that explains her behavior in this verse. She's just not used to people. She almost certainly has a social anxiety. Furthermore, if the people in this crowd find out that that she's there and the problem that she's got, they're just going to go mental, and this day is going to end very, very badly for her. So she's just thinking, I'll just sneak up on Jesus and I'll just touch his clothes and I'll get my miracle and go home again, and no one will even know I was here. And I find inspiration in this tenacity. For 12 years she's been picking up the pieces. 12 years she's been scrambling to get something better in life. She's got no money, she's got no friends, she's got no future. For 12 years she's been struggling, and I always say I think there's value in the struggle. I mean, we despise the hard times in life, but I don't think we should. I think there's value in those times, because those are the times that make our story worth telling. Like Thomas Paine said, the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. So don't be too down on hard times. They're not all that bad. But we don't think like that in our culture, of course, do we anymore? We think that being in control of everything is good, and we forget that we're not in control of everything. So many things affect our lives that we're just not in control of. We don't get to control a lot of what comes into our life. We don't get to control a lot of what happens in our life. We think that when it all goes wrong and when the sky turns dark, that's a sign that we should feel sorry for ourselves. So I like the character of this girl. There's no feeling sorry for herself at all. She's just, you know what, the last 12 years have been horrible, and, but today's a brand new day, and I'm going to head down the beach and see if I can get myself fixed. The last 12 years don't count. The last 12 years don't matter. All that matters is today and trying to get fixed so I can be better tomorrow. Why not? She only cares about struggling on and struggling on and struggling on. And I just say that to encourage you, because I know that many of you, that's your life. It's not that awesome. And it hasn't been awesome in years. And your story is one of just, struggling on. And you struggle on and you struggle on and you keep struggling on. And I think there's huge value in the struggle. Today on the beach, I will not give up. Today on the beach, I will search for hope. And I will dream that life can be better. However, verse 45, Jesus feels something and he stops and asks the crowd, who touched me? And considering this woman's social stigma, Jesus' response to her is remarkable. Her being in public like that was wrong in her culture. Touching people the way she touched Jesus was wrong in her culture. And any first century Jewish religious teacher would have given her a reprimand for what she did. But Jesus isn't interested in giving her a row. Jesus wants to meet her. Jesus wants to meet and interact with the person who doesn't do social interaction. The disciples don't get it. They say, Jesus, everyone's touching you. We're in the middle of a crowd here. But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know the power has gone out from me. Next verse. Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed. That's brutal. She came trembling and fell at his feet in the presence of all the people. She told why she had touched him and how she had instantly been healed. Now that can't have been an easy thing for her to do, right? She spent the last 12 years hiding, living behind drawn curtains, scurrying around out of sight and out of mind, terrified that she would bang into someone in the store or in the street and she'd be found out. She, poor girl, horrible life the last 12 years. Her whole day was about going unnoticed. And now Luke tells us that she realized she couldn't go unnoticed anymore. Jesus says to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Beautiful. I think it's I think it's easy to think that you can bounce back from your problem if your problem is a one-day problem. And, we quite often get one-day problems or two-day problems or one-week problems. And they're quite easy to get over, to pick up the pieces and move on. But the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes. This woman has spent 12 years trying to pick up the pieces. 12 years trying to get over it. And I think that's why her story matters. I think that's why we still tell it 2,000 years later. And I think that's why Jesus is so interested in talking to this woman and celebrating her faith. I think something that we need to remember when we go through hard times is that people are watching us. Our children are watching us. Our family and our friends are watching us, and they see in how we go through our problems either an example to follow or an example to avoid. And if we set a good example, if we're brave in the way we need to be, if we cope in the way we need to, if we hope in the way we need to, they'll see that. And they'll remember it for when their turn at trouble comes, as it always will. I think dogged perseverance in the face of adversity inspires everyone. So, I'm sorry if this is hard to hear, but your children need you to go through this well. Your friends, your colleagues, your family, they need you to go through this as well as you can. They need you to dig deep and find the strength and courage that's needed to just keep on going. The word faith in the Bible means to be persuaded of and to place your confidence in a certain fact. This woman was persuaded that Jesus could help her, and she placed her confidence in it. She accepted that fact, and it caused her to push on and push forward, make her way to the front of a busy crowd, and get from Jesus what she needed. So keep pushing on, my friend. Don't give up. Keep believing, keep hoping, keep loving, and push on and push on and push on for just one more day. That you can do, and so can I. Thanks for joining us this morning. God bless you. See you next Sunday.